start right now. It's 11 o'clock. It's time to get going. And first of all, thank you all for being on with me today and being part of this conversation about excellence and extension. And I would urge you to use the chat. In fact, just a heads up, we're going to be doing some work in the chat today. I really want this third webinar to really be more interactive and engaged. And so there will be two different opportunities where I'm going to ask you to, in the chat, respond to some questions. And I have Kathleen and Cheryl in the background. They will be capturing your ideas, putting those into a poll. And then at some point during our conversation, we will pause for a minute and ask you to vote on the things that you've submitted so that we have this opportunity to hear from you and then your opportunity to help us prioritize on these two different questions. So I hope you'll be part of that. I see that we have over 80 people on board already. That's awesome. I look forward to hearing from you as we continue this conversation. So here we go. You know, JB doesn't work for us anymore, but one of the favorite things that he said that just really resonates with me, you know, he was talking about the idea that a lot of universities are focused on their rankings and you know all those kinds of things, and you know that's part of our culture here. But he said over and over again, is we, University of Nebraska system, want to be the #1 university in delivering value to Nebraskans. And you know, for me, that just says it all. To me, it's a hugely motivating kind of a statement or perspective, and I just really appreciate JB's perspective on that. The cool thing was that JB understood that extension was part of that, and so as I interacted with him, we talked about extension and the ways that extension was delivering value to Nebraskans. So today we're on our journey. Our third webinar really focused on how this excellence and extension idea, concept, conversation impacts me and my work. So this is really about all of us individually and thinking more about how this impacts me. I will mention that we are going to schedule one more webinar just to make sure you haven't had enough. It'll be in late October, and it'll focus on teams and how this excellence and extension model can help us think about teams and teamwork. And of course, we feel like it's important to have that conversation leading up to Fall Conference, November 12th through 14. And so you all got the information on that to register for Fall Conference. Hopefully you're all doing that. Going to be a fantastic Fall Conference this year, and excellence and extension will be part of the conversation there as well. But here we are today on October 9th talking about excellence and extension and how it impacts me. And so you've seen this slide before. These are the 8 elements that we've talked about. I will tell you the last one, we're thinking about maybe changing the wording to discovery instead of research, because really what this last one is about is how do we discover new ideas, new methods, new information, new data as we go about the process of doing our work. And so research in that sense might be a little bit more restrictive. Discovery is kind of that big picture, how we discover and do things better. So our objective for today is to engage all of you in this conversation about how excellence and extension impacts each of us as individuals. And I put this up kind of jokingly, but it's really true. At the end of the day, it really is about us. And it really is about the way we go about our work. And this, to me, is the bottom line in all this. It really is a personal choice. The way we react, the way we respond to these conversations, it really is our choice. And it is the act of choosing, picking or deciding between 2 or more possibilities, thinking about how excellence and extension impacts me and the kind of work that I do, and where I choose to spend my time, and how I choose to move forward on my passion to work and work with and help people. The opportunity or power to choose between 2 or more possibilities, and I think that's a really important perspective. It is our choice, but it's also within our power to make these decisions. And obviously, there's a range of things that can be chosen. I really want to continue to is really about the choices that we make as individuals in terms of what we work on, where we spend our time, how we employ our resources or network, or how we focus on certain things that make a difference. And so it really does continue to be about us and the choices that we all make as individuals. So here's the first request that I told you I was going to ask you to do, to think about and tap in the chat. And you know, this is about us listening and hearing and understanding what's going through your mind. So what we'd like you to do in the chat box is identify some of the key opportunities that this excellence and extension idea brings to you. So we're talking about you personally and or professionally. And here in just a little bit, we'll have this poll put together, and we'll give you an idea to give you an opportunity to vote on these ideas. Please tap in the chat. Tell us what you think. What are some key opportunities that this excellence and extension idea brings to you personally and or professionally? So we're going to continue the conversation, but in the background, I'd like you to continue putting your ideas into the chat, because we want to have a robust conversation and give you an opportunity to vote here in just a few minutes on that. So as you looked at the excellence and extension document, one of the things you noticed was we tried to give you some ideas, not an exhaustive list, but some ideas of how excellence and extension might relate to extension assistants, educators, and specialists. And so, you know, that information is not perfect, but I think there's some ideas there to maybe get you to think a little bit about this. And so I'm going to use the engagement element as the example. And you know, this is the one about how we engage with learners, build working relationships, how we engage with them to assess their needs, how do we stay connected with learners as they make transformational changes, and go through that process of learning and knowing and building confidence, excuse me, and then really deciding to try some things, and then ultimately perhaps implementing. So staying connected is part of the engagement piece. I'm looking out of the corner of my eyes at the comments that are coming in on the chat. You're doing great. Keep it up, okay? So let's talk about extension specialist in this engagement context for just a minute. So, you know, some things that kind of relate to specialists, creating relationships with key stakeholders. That's not unique to specialists, but it's part of what we would like them to think about doing. Connecting with collaborators across disciplines, campuses, organizations, and then really engaging statewide, regionally, and nationally, and even internationally with people and organizations that help them advance our work. And so that's kind of maybe the specialist view of the world, and you can see it's a real global view of the way we expect specialists to engage with a lot of people and a lot of organizations. Educators now maybe a little more focused on stakeholders and clientele, so whoever you're working with in your focus area, connecting with peers, teams, and partners, internal, external partners, and then fostering public-private sector partners. And so a little more focused on, you know, your county, your region, statewide to some extent, but a little bit more of that kind of an engagement focus. And then we move to extension assistants. And I think the cool thing about assistants, y'all get to really do a lot of this cool work directly in your counties, in your purview. So finding those intersections between local issues and university resources, and serving as a conduit for bringing these resources together to meet local needs, and then engaging in our extension teams to help get the work done. And so, you know, just lots of good ideas there in terms of the way we would ask specialist educators and assistants to engage, but we see those roles a little bit differently, and so that's why we wanted to frame that way for your consideration. So excellence and extension based on your job title, and we would encourage you to read through the entire document and think about that kind of stuff. All right, so another way that we talk about this is to talk about position descriptions. And so we have a couple of position descriptions that, in fact, we sent you position descriptions for the 7 different areas that we see extension educators in this case working in. we're working on position descriptions that reflect these excellence and extension ideas with specialists and with assistants. And actually, we're also talking about and engaging today and tomorrow at the Front Door Forum with our support staff. And what does excellence and extension mean for them? So this brief example will be focused on an extension educator position description. In this case, the one that's focused on cropping systems. But you'll see a similar model in all of these different position descriptions. So first, to identify the role, providing in this case regional leadership for UNL Extension's cropping systems action team and the work that we're doing in cropping systems in the region. And then thinking about what are some really important outcomes, and we've identified these. It's not necessarily an exhaustive list, but some things that we'd like the folks in cropping systems to think about. So profitability and sustainability, reducing environmental risk and encouraging resource stewardship, focusing on resiliency in cropping systems from climate variability, a really important emerging area for us. But then also thinking about consumers and youth and their awareness of cropping systems and grain, fiber, and oil products and byproducts. And so those are some outcomes that we'd like people that work in this cropping systems area to work on and think about. So, those are available in all 7 areas. We'd like you to look at those, think about them. Those position descriptions are still drafts at this point. So if you have ideas of how to strengthen or add outcomes that would be important, we would really, really like to hear from you on those things. So I can see we've kind of slowed down on your ideas. That's great. I know Kathleen and Cheryl are working in the background to put that poll together. We'll share with you in just about 2 or 3 minutes. But the other part of this is if you have questions as I go along, please use the chat to log your questions or send your question to my email address, hibbard@unl.edu. You've seen this slide before. This is the 80% focus, and so this is really the subject matter expertise we're asking extension educators to work on. These are relatively similar amongst the 7 different focus program areas, and so this is, well, you can look at it, you can see the kinds of things we're asking you to think about in this whole area of the program focus. All right, so I'm curious if Cheryl and Kathleen have that poll just about ready to go. I think I'll see it here in just a minute. All right, here we go. So this is your opportunity. We're gonna pause here for just a second, and I just realized that I double-clicked, and so it went behind. We will open this poll and ask you to vote for up to 3 of these ideas. So you can pick up to 3, and these are opportunities that this excellence and extension idea provides to you that might be important to you personally and or professionally. So go ahead and vote. We're getting quite a few votes. I'm just going to kind of ramble here for a minute and give you the opportunity to vote and to respond to this, to think about it a little bit. Remember, vote for up to 3. If you know Adobe Connect, we can't stop you from voting for more or less. So it's a kind of an honor system. Pick out what you think are your top 3 ideas that are important to you personally or professionally. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and broadcast the results. If you haven't finished voting, please do so. But I think you'll be very interested to note that the one that came up, it looks like highest, that got the most votes, the opportunity to learn and grow, is right up there. Then we have about 3 that are kind of in the same group. A greater ability to focus and be an expert, that showed up quite a bit. Better content for our clientele. Wow, that says a lot about you and the things that you think are important. But obviously providing great content, or that content bundled into a learning experience that our clientele can really use. And this this last one I'll mention, it's getting a lot of votes. This idea, this is an opportunity for you to follow your passion and think about and work on things that you really are passionate about. And the other areas, it's not that they're not important. Using new technology came up quite a bit, and there are other important areas as well. But thank you very much for your feedback on that poll. I think it does really help us think about, and this idea, I'm going to reflect for just a second, this idea that the opportunity to learn and grow in our work, and we are a university, we're a learning organization, and this organizational culture survey that we did earlier this summer, and we're going to talk more about a bit later. But one of the things that really came up strong for us at UNL Extension is this idea that we are a learning organization and we work hard to support those learning opportunities. So, all right, I need to get back to my slides. There we go. All right, so there was the opportunity poll and the results. So thank you for that. We're ready to ask for your next list of suggestions. So our second request in the chat, identify some of the barriers or challenges that this excellence and extension idea brings to you in your role with UNL Extension. So now, personally, what are the barriers and challenges that you see, that you expect to experience as you think about how excellence and extension impacts you in your role? So again, same thing, type in the chat, and we will summarize those and in a little bit give you another opportunity to share with us what you're thinking. But in the meantime, we're going to continue this conversation about how this excellence and extension idea impacts us as individuals in this work. So you've seen this slide before. These are the 7 proposed program initiatives that we identified in the last webinar. And what I want you to know about this is we've been thinking about how we should staff each one of these areas going forward. And so this is a slide you haven't seen before. We've talked about, the leadership team is talking about this. So these are the 7 focus areas, but we've also added, so you understand the total commitment in this case, to campus extension educators, as well as 4 FTE that we have involved in administration. All these are part of the educator pool. The numbers that you're looking at there, these are our goals for 2020. So we're 5 years out roughly in terms of how we want to go about moving our focus into these areas. And so the idea is that we would have 13 extension educators focused on beef systems, that we would have 12 extension educators focused on community vitality, 24 in crops and water, 16 in food, nutrition, and health, 56 working in 4-H as either educators, assistants, or our district coordinators. And I want to point out that's a big number, but it doesn't include the 44 county-paid 4-H assistants that we have in Nebraska. So over 100, in fact, in this case, 110 positions that are focused on 4-H. Now, I know some people are kind of worried about how do I balance 4-H if I'm a beef systems educator, 80% focused on beef systems. I kind of help out with 4-H. I maybe do a little youth programming in beef. But we really have other 4-H folks that are focused on 4-H and spend most of their time in 4-H. Think about this. Between our county partner and our commitments, 110 positions focused on 4-H. We should be able to do 4-H very, very well in Nebraska with that kind of commitment. The Learning Child Focus Area, 12, Urban Ecology, 10, and then the 10 campus for administration. And here's a point I really want to make, and I want you all to really think about this. When I left in 2007, we had 150 extension educator positions. Right now, today, we have 160. Some people are telling us that Extension is shrinking, Extension is getting smaller. It's not true. We, in fact, have 160 Extension educator positions right now today. And so we're thinking about how to distribute those 160 positions into priority areas that allow us to do our work very, very well. So that's a strong message that I hope you'll think about. And when people ask that question, that you'll respond to them in that way. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that we didn't come up with those numbers just totally by accident. Excuse me. We've looked at data to try and think about how would we staff across Nebraska to focus on these priority areas. And so this is an example of what we're calling a bubble map. And as you look at this map of Nebraska, the darker the color, the more intensive the cropping systems. And obviously, the big gap, the big open space in the middle of the sandhills is that area that's focused on grass production and cow-calf production systems. And they have some cropping systems there, but it's not as intensive. But what I'd like you to look at is as you kind of look at this map, and I'll try and draw your attention to it with the arrow. Look at how these bubbles follow the watershed. So here's the Platte River system. It follows across to eastern Nebraska, and we have bubbles drawn around those, that watershed, the Platte River watershed. We have additional bubbles drawn that kind of follow the Missouri River across eastern Nebraska, and another set of bubbles that follow across the Republican River drainage in south central Nebraska, south central and southwest Nebraska. And so these are really designed to help us follow the watershed. You'll also notice if you see the blue stars, those are the locations of our natural resource districts, key partners as we think about how to engage crop producers in across Nebraska. You'll also notice that as you go to the eastern side of the state, the bubbles are a little bit smaller. And so it reflects the intensity of cropping production systems in eastern Nebraska compared to western Nebraska, where many of those operations are larger and the intensity of the cropping systems is a little bit lower. So we wanted to share that with you because I think it's important to think about and use data whenever possible to drive these kinds of decisions. It makes sense to me that we would try to locate our expertise in regions where that expertise would be valued and used by our clientele, by our learners. So that's an important piece I wanted to share with you. We have these bubble maps for all 7 areas. They're kind of interesting to look at. We'll share those with you at some point, but it helps us think about how we interact, and it also helps us think about, what's my geography? If I'm a cropping systems educator, what's my geography and what counties should I try to serve and respond to? So now let's talk about this idea of being local, because I think for all of us, and as I was kind of watching your comments a little bit there on this last questions about barriers and challenges, you're thinking about this and what it means to still be local and live locally and think about this 80% program focused model. And so this is what we're talking about, the spider webs across Nebraska. So 4 ideas that I think about, and these are not exhaustive. You will think of others. In fact, you've thought about quite a few of these already, and we're going to give you a chance to vote here in just a minute. The 4 ideas that I think about, one is if we're going to be local, and we are committed to that, we are committed to having extension professionals in county offices across Nebraska, 83 county offices as it stands right now, serving all 93 counties. But part of this responsibility is to connect with the community in the county. So connecting with our extension boards, with county government, with community leaders and organizations, getting active in the chamber if that's a good place to be, or with other family and child care providers or economic developers or whatever it might be, but connecting. And you can see already that a bit of this connection might be around your area of focus, but it would also be engaging the community people in areas outside of your focus. So this idea of having connections, building our network, and having a presence. Another one is to represent the University of Nebraska and Extension in your community, in your county, in your in your area. So connecting UNL to your community and county, and one of the things we've talked about that we need to work on is how do we refer learners to the experts in our system. So helping your local community, your county, understand what University of Nebraska is about, the work that we do, the services that we provide, the Real Futures Institute. Eureka last spring was so cool because we did some of this, right? We helped you better understand what are some of the research and creative works that are going on at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. But then also this idea that in this focus model, we can't do this all ourselves, that we need to bring outside extension programs into our counties or into our geography. And so that part of making sure that other program areas besides my own are represented in my county or multi-county units. So those are two things that I think about. Here's an example of exactly this, and you may or may not realize this, but the Nebraska Ag Water Management Network that Swatermock and Gary Zobek and many others are involved in has over 1,200 cooperators across Nebraska. And so this is exactly what we're talking about. We serve a lot of Nebraskans across the state, and when we talk to our local county government folks, or our chamber agribusiness committees or whatever, in this case, we ought to be talking about this Nebraska Ag Water Management Network and how it serves all of Nebraska, including my county or my multi-county unit. So this is just one example. There are many, many more like it. It's important for us to understand this and talk about it. So here's a couple of more ideas about what it means to live local. A third one is about this local team, your local extension office, engaging office personnel, those county paid support staff or 4-H assistants or whatever, whoever their role might be. And then really building that office culture and being part of that office culture and helping make that extension office a good place to work, but a place, and I always tell people this, I'd like our extension as a system and our offices, I'd like us to be a model that other people look at us and the work that we're doing and the fun we have doing that work and the way we celebrate and all that. I'd like other people to look at us and say, wow, we want to be like them. They've got it really good because we've created that. We've created that culture. We've created that engagement. And then the fourth piece, and this is really, really important. I think you all know county government in Nebraska commits almost $8 million to extension. This is not chump change. This is not chicken feed. This is a major commitment of dollars to extension. And we value that investment in our extension program. So what we have to do is try and figure out how we build this balance between being accountable to county government and those county taxpayers that invest their property tax funds in us, and doing the kind of work we need to do to serve learners across Nebraska in this excellence and extension model. So a big part of that is viewing or understanding or thinking about that county budget as a grant. When you get a grant, the granting agency expects you to do stuff that adds value to that grant. We need to think about our county budget in much the same way. So we need to be responsive to local needs. And, our county office staff can help with that immensely. Referrals are really important, those kinds of things. We need to demonstrate our commitment to local learners. And this goes back to what I mentioned just a minute ago, helping people understand the way UNL Extension is impacting their county. The program may or may not be delivered in their county, but local learners are participating in that program. How we provide online resources that people can access anytime and at their convenience is another way that we engage people. And then the other piece is, as we build the work that we're going to do, that we focus on revenue generation and generating funding for outside travel to the best of our ability. There are some counties that are okay using county funds for travel outside of the county, and that's a pretty enlightened view of the way they build and use their county budget resources. Not everybody is comfortable with that, and so we need to work with them. As I look at all this, I had the privilege of being involved with an amazing individual at Purdue University. His name was Roy Ballard, and he worked out of Hancock County, which is on the east side of Indianapolis. And you may have heard me tell this story, but Roy built a recognition as a local foods expert across Indiana. And so in that process, Roy spent 50 to 60% of his time outside of Hancock County. And you know, for some, that will sound like a recipe for disaster, because local county government, extension boards, and others may not value that kind of travel, that kind of broad-based engagement like Roy has across Indiana. But I spoke with their county government there, in that case, they were their county councils several times about their investment in Roy. And of course, in Indiana, half the educator salary is paid by the county, so they have a real investment. Ours is a little bit different than that. But every time I went to that county council and asked them how it was going, they would say things like, "We are so thrilled to have Roy Ballard. We are so thrilled that our educator is known statewide as the local foods expert. We're proud of that, and we're glad to help support that. And oh, by the way, we also know that when Roy Ballard comes home and does programming in Hancock County, we're getting the very best programming we could possibly get." I wish that for all of us, for all of you, because I think that's kind of where we'd like to try and get to if we can. But I know we have some work to do around that, and that's part of what we're going to need to do as we go forward, thinking about this excellence and extension model. Okay, so a couple more things I just wanted to share with you. You've seen this. This is another thing that's personal. How do I engage with our teams, and how do I interact? And so you've seen this slide before, so this is not a new slide. But what I wanted you to do just for a minute is stop and think about how being part of these teams might be enhanced if we knew exactly who our team members were, and you had a focus group of people to work with. You were well connected with specialists and or assistants, extension assistants, if that's appropriate for the area. But you know, if we have 13 educators focusing in beef systems, what does that look like? And how do we build a team around those 13, 12 in community vitality, et cetera, et cetera. So think about how you might engage with a team that's clearly defined, and most of the work that's being done that you're doing is contributing to that team. So I think we're trying to set the table for more focused teamwork as well as more focused educator extension work. All right. So one last point, and then you're going to have the opportunity to vote in this last poll. So this is really the last point, is how do we build our capacity individually? And I saw a lot of comments in the chat just a few minutes ago thinking about, you know, how do I build my skills, my expertise to do this well? And so we're focused on this, and we're thinking about this a lot. And of course, a big part of Wayne Moore's role and responsibility is helping us grow our human capacity at UNL Extension. So Wayne and the leadership team and others are thinking about this a lot. We recognize that in some areas, depending on which of the focus areas you choose, there really are going to be needs for you to continue to build your subject matter expertise. And so these professional development grants are available to you. By the way, you didn't spend a lot of our money in that area last year. We hope you'll spend more this year, because it really is important to build cutting edge expertise in your area, in your focus area going forward. We also understand that in this new model, there's going to be different opportunities to think about how you deliver programs and how you evaluate those programs. So things around teaching and learning, especially in an online environment, but also in a more focused educator assignment. Building our capacity in program evaluation and evolving into developmental evaluation as perhaps a new and better way to do evaluation, and focusing on the process of learners learning and building skills and adapting and applying those ideas. And then continuing to build your personal skills. And, you know, I'm so proud of what we do in Nebraska. No one else does this the way we do. But your opportunities to participate in leadership development and coaching, 7 Habits, 5 Choices, and there's others, that really do help you think about and build your capacity to operate effectively and make choices. And I wanted to pause just for a second. Just before we started, I was looking at the feedback from the most recent 5 Choices workshop that Keith and Dina and I think it was Linda was the other person that was involved in this one. And the feedback that we were getting talked a lot about their passion and being purposeful and moving toward extraordinary in terms of the work they do. And so, these are the kinds of things we talk about when we have these kinds of learning experiences. So building your capacity is important to us. We're committed to that, and we really want to hear from you as you think about what you need. Okay, we're going to go to this last poll now. We're going to open this poll, and this one is about what are, excuse me, the barriers or challenges that this excellence and extension idea brings to you in your role with UNL Extension. And so again, vote for up to 3. And there's a lot of choices here, so take a look. We'll give you a minute. I'm gonna kind of stall for time to give you a few minutes to vote on these. Think about which ones are really important to you. And I just want all of you to know that we really pay attention to this feedback, to this input, because we realize that if we're going to be successful in implementing this excellence and extension model, that we really do need to be cognizant and aware of these barriers and challenges and the kinds of things that are really going to challenge us to be effective in these roles. So I'm going to give you just about another 30 seconds or so. We've had a lot of people vote. If you haven't voted, please do so. This is really, really insightful information. I'm going to go ahead and broadcast the results, but if you haven't finished voting, please do so. So I think you can see now that, excuse me, there's a couple of these issues that are really concerning you. Looks like the one that maybe has the most votes is balancing county and regional responsibilities. And I really hear you there. I haven't had to do that kind of work personally, although maybe at a different level. When I was a district director, I was thinking about how I'd be a district director in the Panhandle, but also part of UNL Extension and contributing there. But I think this is a really, really important point and one that we need to work through and think about. And several of these will have best practices that'll help us think about it. Another one that came up really high is county travel and supply budgets and how we use those, how we be loyal to local taxpayers. Those are really, really important questions. The whole funding question. How do we generate revenue to support these kinds of things, the travel that need to occur? This one I think is really insightful. How do we help transition clientele from current expectations? And I recognize that that's out there, and people do have expectations. I've always said when I hear from clientele about their concerns or their worries or whatever, or they have a complaint or a criticism of us, my first reaction is thank you for caring enough to let us know, to tell us, because in some organizations you never hear, you never know. Our local clientele do have expectations, and they do want us to be loyal to them, and I think we do that. I think our opportunity is how we think about how do we bring the entire UNL Extension system with all of our resources, our learning opportunities, the Ag Water Network and things like that. How do we bring that to all of our counties so our learners understand that there's a lot of people involved in this, and we're committed to them in a lot of different ways. Another one that came up really high, how to manage and grow 4-H programming, and we need to talk about that. We need to work on that. I know Kathleen and the district coordinators are already talking about that and thinking about that. I go back to those 110 positions, though, that are focused on 4-H, and I think we can do that well with that kind of a commitment, but we got to figure it out. So that's an important piece. And this last one I'll mention, lack of specialists in some content areas. I hear you, and I think we're fortunate in this phase 2 hiring process. We're going to get some new specialist expertise in areas that we either haven't had before or that we're a little bit light on, not in terms of quality, just in terms of numbers. And so I think that's a really important opportunity for us. Almost 9 FTE, extension FTE in this round, phase 2 round. Many of those are specialist positions that will support us. So really great conversations, really good information. Thank you for your input on that. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and finish up my comments, and then we will give you an opportunity to I'm going to back up just a second from that. I'm going to take a quick look through the chat. Are there questions that are coming in that I should respond to? So I'm going to do that real quick. If you have questions that you haven't logged into the chat at this point, please do so. Wow, there's just a lot of really good comments and points here in the chat. Yeah. Good comments. All right. So if you have questions, go ahead and put those into the chat. We'd like to hear from you and to talk about some of these things. And there's a couple of comments here that I think might be interesting to talk about. And if you have reactions to these, please respond. I think Swap makes a really interesting comment here. We should be focusing on local issues and honor traditions, absolutely. But we can't be only local in this global information sharing area, absolutely. We can be a great information and value source for local stakeholders, but we can also be one of the best information sources, leaders in regional, national, and global platforms at the same time. And, I think that is absolutely critical as we think about our scope and our reach. And it kind of goes back to that Roy Ballard example that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Those county elected officials realized that the quality of the information they were getting from Roy was better because of his statewide commitment and responsibility. And I think we can build that here in Nebraska. Okay, so a couple of questions that are coming in. Keeping county extension boards engaged, will they continue to be an important part of the selection processes as positions are filled? And first of all, we absolutely need to continue to keep our extension boards engaged, although I think we should be open to maybe some changes or a little bit of an evolution, not revolution, evolution in the way we engage and staff extension boards. I know in some counties we have extension boards that have a very global view, a very broad perspective, and really think about these things in ways that benefit not only them and their county constituents, but the region and the state and beyond. And we'd like to build that kind of capacity and worldview. Will they continue to be an important part of the selection process? And my answer to that is yes, absolutely. Although what we have to help them do is understand that if we're hiring a learning child educator who will be located, officed in their county, that they need to hire someone who brings value or an approach to doing extension work that benefits not only them and the local county but beyond. And so that's I think that's our opportunity, is to help extension boards look up and see and think about the broader opportunities across the state. But I think that's just really a great question. Tammy asks, will a map of 4-H educators be made like the crop educator map? Yes, we're still working on it. What is the intention of how 4-H educators will program beyond county borders? Will it be geographically or outcome based? And the answer to that is yes. That doesn't probably seem like a very satisfying answer, but what we'd actually like all of us to start thinking about on 4-H is how do we maybe do some county grouping? We do some of this already. In some cases, it's a formal grouping like Dual Garden, where they have one interlocal agreement for the two counties, one extension board. They figured out how to share their budget, those kinds of things. Others are more informal, but very practical working relationships and collaborations where, maybe we share 4-H staff from a programming standpoint across 2 or maybe 3 counties, and we use that idea so that we build our team where there's a few more hands when we need them. But we also strengthen our program and focus a little bit more on some of the educational opportunities. But I do think, Tammy, and we have the 5 outcome areas in 4-H. We want to stick with those. Those are really important ideas, and so collaborative programming opportunities beyond your county in your outcome area. So Connie asks, will reporting and evaluation change as well? And that's a good question. We haven't thought that through completely. I think one of the things I talked about at the last webinar is that our action teams become action initiatives that are much more porous and engaging, and we knock down the walls, whatever barriers might be there. And if we do that, there should be more collaboration across our program areas, and there are opportunities to report that collaboration and that kind of integration and working together in ways that make sense to us. And so that's something we'd like you to think about as you think about crossing those program area, those program areas, those focus areas. Evaluation we haven't thought a lot about yet, but that's something we need to consider. And who can reflect on the work that we're doing and whether or not we're achieving excellence in that kind of work. Jenny makes a point about regions where media is sparse, very scattered, and it's reached 81 locale, and so that whole communication piece is critically important to us going forward, and building our social media strategies and the way we engage people are really important. So we need to really be creative about that and think about what our new opportunities are. By the way, if you disagree or see it differently, please type it in the chat. I would love to hear from you and help us think about that. Maps of each extension and county position would be beneficial. Absolutely, I agree. Possibly able to see where folks are at and possibly going to be will help us think about how our support people and team members are in a spatial relation. Kathy, I think that's a really, really good point. A big part of this opportunity going forward is how we network and how we collaborate. And to me, that's just a key point of how we're going to operate, or how we, it's an opportunity for us going into the future, thinking about how we move forward and how we integrate and how we organize ourselves and kind of who's doing what, so we know where the experts are and how we build those relationships. Okay, Connie asks another question, and by the way, the webinar yesterday where we talked about the changes in Ed Media and how that's going to affect us going forward. And if you were part of that webinar, you heard us say actually quite a bit. We're still working on that. We still have things that we need to work out. But we also know that we have really good resources to support Ed Media kinds of work in other locations. So we've built a strong relationship with University Communications, Meg Lauerman's shop. There's good resources there. Information technology and services is ITS is another group, and they're working with us as well to build web programming capacity to help us do the kind of web programming that we want to do. And so those are good opportunities. We will also see opportunities to outsource some of these things, especially if we don't have the capacity to do it internally. So questions like, how will we deliver content online? We talked a little bit about the content management system that UNL is using, which is Drupal at this time. And building a Drupal platform where we as extension professionals focus on content, and we can help design a web resource, a web platform that will deliver that content in ways that are highly effective. But at the same time, we focus on content. So it's creating the documents, creating the decision support tools, those kinds of things that help us communicate information and give learners new tools to make decisions with. And so absolutely that will be supported, and we realize how important that is. But we also realize that, you know, even that simple point around delivery of content online is really a complex set of questions and resources and supports that we need to put into place. So Kim asked the question, will it be possible to change the bubbles? Is there a better way to manage the focus area? And I'm going to tell you absolutely. In fact, the bubbles are very negotiable. At some point, the bubbles will kind of become counties, and the reason we see us doing that is that we don't want learners in some pockets to be neglected or missed or lost. So we want everybody to have some geographic responsibility. But keep in mind, this model says it's not just this group of counties or this bubble. It's about how I engage and coordinate statewide to do programming and to build expertise and excellence. And so the bubbles are absolutely negotiable. It's kind of our best guess start on what that might look like. And so you'll have opportunities to help us think through those things as we move into this model. Gary asks, is the webinar from yesterday archived? It is. I just need to get the archived webinar edited just a little bit, and then we'll release that to the system, so you'll all have that opportunity to view that information. And it really is critical information going forward. Okay, our chat comments have slowed down just a little bit. I've got a question for you, and again, we're not going to do a poll on this, but I'm really curious as you've thought about all this and kind of where you're at to strengthen your effectiveness as an 80% focused educator. What types of professional development would you like to pursue? And I think this is important, as you know, we have specialists on this webinar, as they think about working with us to build some of those kinds of professional development. You know, what do you need? What are you looking for? Where, you know, this is not an admission of guilt. This is an opportunity to help us better understand what kinds of things that you are looking for, what kinds of things you need. Are there skills? Is there subject matter expertise that you need to help you build capacity? So Tammy talks about grant writing and fund development. Excellent. And one of the things we need to do, we do have a cost recovery model that we need to be more open about, more informing about, and building some platforms to help you do that kind of work. So resource development is huge, and one way we can really move this across. Professionals need money to travel to focus out-of-state opportunities, and you know, that's part of this professional development fund, but it's also part of what we ought to be able to do if we develop genuine revenue streams associated with this focused work that we do. We need to continue to get the bigger picture. Gary, I agree with that, and I think that's a huge opportunity. You know, Um, I can't think of a single clientele area where a global view of the world doesn't enhance their opportunity and the way they might operate. And so better understanding how things work in other regions or what the challenges are in regions are something that we could really help people understand. And we need to go there first, right? So Jay talks about helping educators get more involved in research. Great point. Team building with folks in the area we're going to be programming in, absolutely. And, that is one of the things I see is we shouldn't take this team building thing for granted. And so, for example, the new community vitality educators that were announced in Keeping Up this morning are having what shall I call it, a storming, forming, organizing retreat in late October. And we're bringing in a facilitator to help with that conversation. So as these new teams begin to form, let's not take team formation for granted. Let's think about how can we be more deliberate in putting that together and helping to make it happen. Dewey talks about in-service, that subject matter expertise in specific discipline areas, really important. Leadership development, really important. Social media, conducting research opportunities with specialist and department faculty, impact evaluation, and that's one, folks, we really need to grow, continue to grow some capacity in. New technologies, new formats. It's longer than an hour or two, and Monty, you're right on target. I hope you all have heard me talk about this idea that great extension work anymore is not about an event. It's a process. It's about how we engage learners and we help them build capacity and confidence to do things. That doesn't happen in a 1 or 2 hour engagement on most issues or questions, the complexity of the issues and questions that we're dealing with today. And so I think that is something we need to continue to work on and think about. And certainly curricula is part of that, learning platforms are part of that, but thinking about extension as a process, a learning process. Strahenia talks about training on education-specific areas of focus, excellent, helpful to extension assistants and associates to have funding for professional development. This is a huge issue for us and one that we really need to work on. And I think here we're really reflecting on county-paid extension assistance. And this, to some extent, is in our nutrition education program, but it's also in our 4-H program and others. How do we support professional development for people who are county-paid extension assistants or associates? And more training for support staff so they can help with things like websites and things like that. And these are all really, really great ideas. And we're going to look for more input from you on the kinds of professional development you need. I'm going to share one more question. I'm not going to ask you to respond to it, but I would ask you to reflect on it a little bit because I think it's we're going to have this either opportunity or challenge. We're going to be faced with an extension board member who's going to ask us the hard questions about why are we doing this, or why do we view this why do we think this adds value to them and the kind of work they're doing. And so giving an example of what would you share with an extension board member about this excellence in extension model and the opportunity that it presents to them, to learners, to residents of a particular county or region or whatever. So we need to think about that. We need to be ready for that because I guarantee as we talk more about this excellence and extension model with our stakeholders, this question is going to come up. And by the way, we have shared all of these excellence and extension webinars with our NACEB board, so they have all this information and the opportunity to respond to it. So we're about at the end of our hour. You've been incredibly loyal to this. I see there's still 124 people logged in. Thank you. I would just close with this last comment. One of my favorites, William Jennings Bryan, who says that destiny is no matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And it is our choice. We started out talking about this idea of choice. It's not a thing to be waited for, it is a thing to be achieved. And I know all of us, this organization, we can achieve this. We're already very, very good at what we do. We want to continue to ramp that up. We want to continue to be better at what we do. We want to be better at adding value to our constituents, to our learners. They deserve that. We are committed to that. We're going to achieve this. And I just thank all of you for being on the webinar today and the conversation that we've had. All of your thoughts and ideas will be considered as we go forward. So thank you all for being part of this today. This is being archived and will be sent out to everybody shortly. So thank you all. Have a great day and a great weekend. Thanks.